There's a silent language between souls that transcends words, gestures, or even physical presence. When a man realizes you've found peace after the end of a shared story, something deep moves within him, as if the universe whispers truths he wasn't ready to hear. Edgar Cayce, the psychic who taught us about the mysteries of the soul and the eternal bonds between beings, revealed that nothing in life happens by chance. Every encounter, every separation, every moment of pain, and every instant of healing are part of a larger plan, woven by the universal laws governing our spiritual evolution. When you find peace after a breakup, when your wounds transform into wisdom and your heart opens again to life, you not only heal yourself, but you also send out an energetic frequency that resonates deeply within the soul of the one who once shared your journey. The man who sees you move on in peace isn't just observing an external transformation. He's witnessing a spiritual rebirth that confronts him with his own choices, his own unhealed wounds, and, most importantly, the realization that he may have let something precious slip away, something he didn't appreciate at the right time. Cayce taught us that every relationship is an opportunity for mutual growth, a sacred contract between souls who meet to learn specific lessons. When one of these souls transcends pain and finds peace, they're fulfilling their part of the spiritual agreement, even if it means going it alone. The first feeling that floods a man's heart upon this discovery is recognition, that sudden perception that something fundamental has shifted in the energetic field you shared. He may not be able to explain it in words, but he senses you're no longer the same person he left behind. You've transformed into someone more whole, more luminous, more connected to your true essence. This transformation awakens in him a complex mix of admiration and regret, as he realizes you achieved alone what you perhaps couldn't have done together, finding inner peace and the connection to the sacred within each of us. According to Cayce's teachings, when someone achieves genuine peace after emotional hardship, they align themselves with the universal forces of healing and renewal. This energy is perceived by all those connected to them through karmic ties. The man witnessing your peace isn't just seeing an ex-partner moving on. He's seeing a soul reconnected with its inner divinity, and this makes him deeply question his own choices and the path he's chosen. There's something profoundly unsettling to the male ego when he realizes you not only survived his absence but flourished because of it. Cayce spoke of how our souls choose specific experiences to learn love, forgiveness, and spiritual growth. And sometimes these lessons include the need to distance ourselves from relationships that no longer serve the greater purpose of evolution. When you find peace after a separation, you demonstrate that you've understood this lesson on a deep level, that you've transformed pain into wisdom and absence into divine presence. The man observes your transformation and feels something beyond simple recognition. He feels a cosmic nostalgia, as if remembering something that existed before this earthly encounter. Cayce taught us that we often meet the same souls life after life, playing different roles in the divine play of existence. When one of these souls breaks old patterns and reaches a new level of consciousness, it resonates through all shared incarnations, creating a reverberation felt even from a distance. There's a sacred irony in the fact that a man often truly values a woman only when he realizes she no longer needs him to be complete. Your peace isn't a message directed at him, but a reflection of your own connection to the divine. Paradoxically, this spiritual independence awakens in him a deep desire to be part of the state of grace you've achieved. He realizes you're not just living, but radiating a frequency of love that doesn't depend on external circumstances, and this makes him question whether he's found that same connection on his own journey. The peace you've achieved acts as a mirror to his soul, reflecting not only what he's lost, but also what he hasn't yet found within himself. Cayce always emphasized that each person is responsible for their own healing and spiritual evolution. When we see someone who has accomplished this inner work, it confronts us with our own limitations and self-sabotaging patterns. The man who sees you at peace is being invited by the universe to look at his own unhealed wounds, his own self-sabotaging patterns, and his own disconnection to the sacred. At times, he wonders if you always possessed this inner light, and he simply failed to see it, or if it was the separation that allowed this light to fully manifest. Cayce taught us that we often need to distance ourselves from certain dynamics and relationships to access our true essence. And your peace may be a direct result of freeing yourself from patterns that prevented your soul from fully expressing themselves. This realization can be simultaneously liberating and painful for him, suggesting that perhaps your relationship served more as a school of learning than a final destination. There's a deep humility that arises in the man's heart when he realizes you found within yourself everything he thought he could offer you. Your peace demonstrates that you didn't need to be completed by anyone, that you were whole from the beginning, and that your relationship served more as a catalyst for you to discover your own inner divinity. This realization can be simultaneously liberating and challenging for him, as it invites him to question his own motivations and seek within himself that same connection to the sacred. Cayce always emphasized that true love isn't possessive or dependent, but a force that liberates and elevates both parties involved. When you find peace after a separation, you're demonstrating that you've understood this truth on a deep level, that you've transformed attachment into unconditional love and lack into spiritual fullness. The man witnessing this transformation is invited to undertake the same journey, to find within himself the source of love and completeness he may have mistakenly sought in external relationships. Your peace also awakens in him a sacred curiosity about the transformative process you've experienced. He wonders what moments of revelation allowed you to reconnect with your essence, what spiritual practices you adopted, what books you read, what meditations you practiced. A part of him wants to understand the path you've taken, not necessarily to try to win you back, but to apply those learnings to his own spiritual growth journey. Cayce taught that each soul has its own divine timing, and that we can't force our spiritual evolution or that of others.
Cada ola parece devastadora al acercarse, pero después de pasar, ella descubre que sigue en pie, que aún respira, que sigue adelante. Esta resistencia no es solo física o emocional, sino espiritual. Cada tempestad superada en solitario añade una nueva capa de sabiduría a su alma, un nuevo color a la pintura de su existencia. La maternidad, cuando se vive sin apoyo, adquiere dimensiones casi místicas. La mujer que cría sola a sus hijos no solo provee necesidades físicas, sino que canaliza la energía creadora del universo a través de su ser. Cada sacrificio hecho por sus hijos es un acto de amor cósmico. Cada noche mal dormida es una ofrenda al altar de la continuidad de la vida. Ella participa en el plan divino de perpetuación de la especie, pero lo hace de una manera que desarrolla su alma exponencialmente. Cuando la sociedad juzga o cuestiona su situación, la mujer sin apoyo aprende una de las lecciones más valiosas de la experiencia humana: la importancia de no depender de la aprobación externa para su autoestima. Cada crítica recibida es una oportunidad para fortalecer su conexión con su verdad interior. Cada juicio enfrentado es un ejercicio de mantener su integridad espiritual. Esta independencia emocional no es frialdad, sino una forma elevada de amor propio que le permite permanecer fiel a su esencia incluso bajo presión social. El cansancio que la mujer sin apoyo siente no es solo físico, sino una fatiga del alma que carga el peso de múltiples responsabilidades. Sin embargo, es precisamente en este cansancio donde ella encuentra acceso a fuentes de energía que no sabía poseer. Cuando todas sus fuerzas humanas se agotan, algo mayor toma el control. Algo que Edgar Cayce identificaba como la fuerza crística dentro de cada ser. Una energía divina que se manifiesta cuando más la necesitamos. Las sincronías en la vida de la mujer sin apoyo son particularmente notables. Cuando más necesita una señal de que va por buen camino, el universo conspira para enviar pequeños milagros. Un encuentro casual que resulta en una oportunidad de trabajo, una llamada telefónica que llega en el momento exacto, un descubrimiento inesperado que resuelve un problema urgente. Estas sincronías no son coincidencias, sino manifestaciones de la ley universal que Edgar Cayce llamaba atracción magnética del alma, donde la conciencia alineada con el propósito divino atrae exactamente lo que necesita para continuar su viaje. Y aquí, en este punto de nuestra conversación, necesito hacer una pausa para compartir algo importante contigo. Si estas palabras están resonando en tu alma, si reconoces tu propia jornada en esta narrativa, te invito a unirte a nuestra comunidad de almas en busca de la verdad espiritual. Suscríbete al canal, activa la campanita de notificaciones, porque juntos estamos creando un espacio sagrado donde la sabiduría ancestral se encuentra con la experiencia contemporánea, donde cada historia individual contribuye a la comprensión colectiva de los misterios del alma. La intuición de la mujer sin apoyo se desarrolla de forma extraordinaria. Sin poder contar con consejos constantes de otros, aprende a confiar en los susurros de su alma, en los presentimientos que llegan como brisa suave, en los sueños que cargan mensajes importantes. Esta conexión intuitiva no es superstición, sino una forma elevada de percepción que permite el acceso a información que no está disponible a través de los sentidos físicos. Edgar Cayce enseñaba que la intuición es la voz del alma hablando directamente a la conciencia, y la mujer sin apoyo desarrolla esta capacidad de forma natural y necesaria. Sus relaciones, cuando existen, adquieren una cualidad diferente. La mujer sin apoyo no se relaciona por carencia o dependencia, sino por elección consciente. Ella sabe que puede vivir sola, que puede enfrentar la vida con sus propias fuerzas, así que cuando permite que alguien entre en su mundo, es una decisión basada en amor genuino, no en necesidad. Esta independencia emocional crea relaciones más sanas y auténticas, donde cada persona contribuye al crecimiento de la otra sin perder su individualidad. La relación con el dinero también se transforma en la vida de la mujer sin apoyo. Ella aprende a ver la abundancia no solo como acumulación de bienes materiales, sino como un flujo de energía que necesita ser dirigido con sabiduría. Cada euro ahorrado, cada cuenta pagada con esfuerzo propio, cada meta financiera alcanzada sola es una victoria que va más allá del aspecto material. Es una demostración de que ella puede canalizar la energía universal de provisión a través de su propia conciencia y acción. Los momentos de desesperación, cuando surgen, son portales para transformaciones profundas. Cuando una mujer sin apoyo llega al límite de sus fuerzas y siente que no puede continuar, en realidad está llegando al punto donde su personalidad humana se rinde a su alma divina. Es en estos momentos de rendición donde ocurren los mayores milagros, cuando soluciones inesperadas surgen, fuerzas aparentemente imposibles se manifiestan, cuando la fe se transforma de concepto mental en experiencia vivida. La soledad nocturna, que podría ser vista como el aspecto más difícil de su jornada, en realidad se convierte en uno de sus mayores tesoros. En esas horas silenciosas, cuando el mundo duerme y ella permanece despierta con sus pensamientos, ocurre una comunión profunda con su esencia más pura. Es como si, en ausencia de voces externas, finalmente pudiera oír la melodía de su propia alma, la música cósmica que siempre ha estado sonando, pero que raramente logramos percibir en medio del ruido de la vida cotidiana. El camino de Isabel, una mujer sin apoyo. Isabel, siguiendo las enseñanzas de figuras espirituales como Edgar Cayce, se podría mencionar una figura equivalente de la espiritualidad hispana como Santa Teresa de Ávila para mayor contextualización, hablaba de patrones kármicos, experiencias que se repiten en diferentes vidas hasta que se aprenden las lecciones completamente. La mujer sin apoyo, como Isabel, a veces trabaja con patrones relacionados con la independencia espiritual, el desarrollo de una fe inquebrantable y el cultivo de la compasión a través de la experiencia personal de la dificultad. Cada obstáculo superado sin ayuda externa es un paso hacia la disolución de estos patrones kármicos, una aproximación a la libertad espiritual que trasciende las limitaciones de la experiencia individual. Su capacidad de adaptación se vuelve casi sobrenatural. Cuando una puerta se cierra, no solo busca una ventana, sino que aprende a crear sus propias aberturas. Esta flexibilidad no es solo práctica, sino espiritual. Desarrolla una profunda confianza en el flujo de la vida, una certeza de que el universo siempre proveerá un camino, aunque éste no sea inmediatamente visible. Esta fe no es ciega, sino basada en experiencias repetidas de superación y transformación. Su capacidad de adaptación se vuelve casi sobrenatural. Cuando una puerta se cierra, no solo busca una ventana, sino que aprende a crear sus propias aberturas. Esta flexibilidad no es solo práctica, sino espiritual. Desarrolla una profunda confianza en el flujo de la vida, una certeza de que el universo siempre proveerá un camino, aunque éste no sea inmediatamente visible. Esta fe no es ciega, sino basada en experiencias repetidas de superación y transformación. La fatiga que la mujer sin apoyo siente no es solo físico, sino una fatiga del alma que carga el peso de múltiples responsabilidades. Sin embargo, es precisamente en este cansancio donde ella encuentra acceso a fuentes de energía que no sabía poseer. Cuando todas sus fuerzas humanas se agotan, algo mayor toma el control. Algo que Edgar Cayce identificaba como la fuerza crística dentro de cada ser. Una energía divina que se manifiesta cuando más la necesitamos. Las sincronías en la vida de la mujer sin apoyo son particularmente notables. Cuando más necesita una señal de que va por buen camino, el universo conspira para enviar pequeños milagros. Un encuentro casual que resulta en una oportunidad de trabajo, una llamada telefónica que llega en el momento exacto, un descubrimiento inesperado que resuelve un problema urgente. Estas sincronías no son coincidencias, sino manifestaciones de la ley universal que Edgar Cayce llamaba atracción magnética del alma, donde la conciencia alineada con el propósito divino atrae exactamente lo que necesita para continuar su viaje. Y aquí, en este punto de nuestra conversación, necesito hacer una pausa para compartir algo importante contigo. Si estas palabras están resonando en tu alma, si reconoces tu propia jornada en esta narrativa, te invito a unirte a nuestra comunidad de almas en busca de la verdad espiritual. Suscríbete al canal, activa la campanita de notificaciones, porque juntos estamos creando un espacio sagrado donde la sabiduría ancestral se encuentra con la experiencia contemporánea, donde cada historia individual contribuye a la comprensión colectiva de los misterios del alma. La intuición de la mujer sin apoyo se desarrolla de forma extraordinaria. Sin poder contar con consejos constantes de otros, aprende a confiar en los susurros de su alma, en los presentimientos que llegan como brisa suave, en los sueños que cargan mensajes importantes. Esta conexión intuitiva no es superstición, sino una forma elevada de percepción que permite el acceso a información que no está disponible a través de los sentidos físicos. Edgar Cayce enseñaba que la intuición es la voz del alma hablando directamente a la conciencia, y la mujer sin apoyo desarrolla esta capacidad de forma natural y necesaria. Sus relaciones, cuando existen, adquieren una cualidad diferente. La mujer sin apoyo no se relaciona por carencia o dependencia, sino por elección consciente. Ella sabe.
There is a profound wisdom in the way you've transformed the experience of separation into an opportunity for reconnection with your most authentic self. Your piece demonstrates that you've understood that sometimes we need to step away from certain dynamics and relationships to access our true essence, and that this separation isn't a failure but a necessary part of the spiritual growth process. The man witnessing your transformation is invited to adopt this same perspective, to see endings not as failures but as opportunities for new beginnings. Edgar Cayce always emphasized that time is an illusion, and that from a spiritual perspective, all experiences exist simultaneously in the eternal now. When you find peace, you are connecting with this timeless perspective, where there is no past to regret and no future to fear, only the present moment brimming with divine possibilities. The man feels this connection to the eternal now as an expansion of his own consciousness, even if he doesn't fully understand what's happening. His peace also awakens in him a deeper understanding of the nature of true love. He realizes that love is not possession, control, or dependence, but a force that liberates and elevates, allowing each soul to follow its own path of spiritual evolution. When you find peace, you are demonstrating that you have grasped this fundamental truth about love. and this invites him to question his own conceptions about relationships and intimacy. There is something profoundly moving in the way you have managed to transform pain into wisdom, absence into divine presence, and the end of a cycle into the beginning of a new phase of your spiritual journey. The man observing this transformation cannot help but be touched by your courage and determination, by your ability to find light even in the most challenging moments of your experience. Your peace is living testimony that it is possible to transcend any circumstance when we open ourselves to divine guidance and commit to our spiritual growth. Cayce taught us that each soul is unique and has its own path back to the sacred, and that we cannot judge or compare spiritual journeys. When you find peace, you are honoring your own unique journey, recognizing that your path may be different from the paths of others, but that it is equally valid and sacred. The man witnessing your peace is being invited to honor his own unique journey, to stop comparing himself to others, and to focus on his own spiritual growth. Your transformation also serves as a reminder that we are far more resilient and powerful than we imagine. Cayce always emphasized that each soul has access to infinite divine resources, and that there is no situation that cannot be transformed through the conscious application of spiritual principles. When you find peace after an emotional trial, you are demonstrating this fundamental truth, showing that it is possible to overcome any challenge when we connect with our divine nature. The man feels your peace as a revelation about his own possibilities for healing and transformation. He realizes that if you could find light in the darkness, if you could transform pain into wisdom, then he too can make this journey back to the sacred. Your peace acts as a bridge between what is and what can be, between the current reality and the infinite possibilities of spiritual growth that exist within each soul. Cayce spoke of how certain people enter our lives to show us aspects of ourselves we don't yet know, and you have become that kind of person for him. Your peace reflects possibilities he hasn't yet explored within himself, capacities for healing and transformation he hasn't yet developed. When he sees you at peace, he is seeing a reflection of his own spiritual potential, and this inspires him to seek his own connection with the sacred. There is an almost sacred quality in the way you have managed to integrate all the experiences of your life into a coherent narrative of growth and spiritual evolution. Your peace is not merely the absence of conflict, but the active presence of a wisdom that has been earned through real experiences, overcome challenges, and lessons learned. The man witnessing your transformation recognizes this sacred quality and feels inspired to seek his own spiritual integration. Cayce taught us that the true purpose of life is to love unconditionally, and that all the relationships and experiences we live through are opportunities to develop this capacity. When you find peace, you are demonstrating that you have learned to love without conditions, including loving yourself and loving those who have been a part of your journey, even when those relationships have ended. The man witnessing your peace is being invited to develop the same capacity for unconditional love. His peace also awakens in him a deep reverence for the spiritual journey you have traversed. He realizes that your transformation was not accidental, but the result of conscious and dedicated work of healing and spiritual growth. This realization inspires him to begin his own journey of transformation, to seek the tools and practices that can help him find his own connection with the sacred. And so, when a man sees that you have moved on in peace, he is not just observing an external change, but witnessing a miracle of spiritual transformation that invites him to question his own choices, to honor his own journey, and to seek his own connection with the divine that dwells within each soul. Your peace becomes a gift not only for you, but for all those who have the privilege of witnessing your transformation, reminding us that no matter how dark the night of the soul may seem, there is always a radiant dawn waiting for us on the other side of the darkness. The question that echoes in the silence of your transformed heart is this: Are you ready to recognize that your peace is not just a personal achievement, but an open door for others to also find their way back to the sacred?